Hey, what's up, guys? Coach Mac, Play Fast Football. All right, today I'm going to do a video talking about how we teach and use smart splits when we're using what we call our Zeer play, or what I call our Zeer play, which is really it's a combination of a zone and a veer theory, and it's also kind of a combination of a duo theory, which sometimes I kind of catch flack for because people don't like the fact that it's really not the true duo that they see in college or the NFL. But for me, on paper, it kind of acts as a duo play, so we're going to take a look at that. Make sure you check out some of our partners. Dome Hats, a headwear sponsor that I use with Play Fast Football and at the high school I'm currently at. They have a custom online hat builder where you can customize and build your own hat with your logo. You can put embroidery wherever you want. If you want to put your name or your school name or your business name, you can change the back to where it's snapback, it's Velcro, it's fitted. You can change the different bills. They have adjustable bills, flat bills, Versa type bills. You can change the style of the hat. You can change the color of the panels. It's completely customizable. So make sure you check out Dome Hats. Every hat has a story. Use their customized online hat builder to help tell your hat story. Baker Sporting Goods company we use for our uniforms, our spirit packs for our players, our coaches gear. Or if we have an online fan site, we use Baker Sports. They support our local high school media days. So this is one of their Baker Sports media day shirts that they do for coaches and players at the media day. So make sure you check out Baker Sporting Goods. Just Play Football. It's a more powerful way to present your playbook and your game plan to your players. I use it to diagram plays. I think it's the best play diagramming tool on the market right now. I use it when I'm going to do webinars, or if I'm going to speak at clinics, or if I'm going to do anything for my Patreon site. I always diagram and use Just Play Football. Game Strat sideline replay system that we use. If you're looking for a highly reliable, highly affordable sideline replay system, make sure you check out Game Strat. All right, DifferenceUSA, the ultimate striking machine. Get thousands of reps without needing a partner. It can go in your weight room. It can go outside on the field. You work on elbows in, thumbs up, eye place, where you need to place your eyes, eye discipline on the strike zone, coming out of your stance with your hips. It has different coils that you can change the resistance on the strike, so as your kids get stronger and better at striking, you can make it tougher on them to leverage the pad in. So make sure you check out DifferenceUSA. HighandTight ball security training aid that we use. It's got sensors inside different panels so that you have to hold the ball in the proper position with the proper points of pressure. You hear an auditory beep when you are holding the ball correctly, which gives you muscle memory to understand that that's where the ball needs. Anytime you don't hear the beep, you're doing something wrong, so you need to figure out if it's the wrist, if it's the elbow, forearm, all right, is the ball where it needs to be, is the pressure correct against the rib cage or the chest. You need to make sure you understand all those things. It gives you an auditory beep when you're doing it correctly, which builds the muscle memory to carry the football in the proper place. Ball security is job security. Make sure you check out HighandTight. All right, so for the past probably, I would say, 10 years now, going back to probably studying. The first time I really looked at it in theory was with Colin Kaepernick running it at Nevada. At the time, I believe Nevada did, and they may still do, call it split zone, or their version of split zone. I then kind of came across some research where people were calling it a Zeer play because it's a combination zone veer. So in other words, it's, for us, it gives us the ability to run an inside zone type play with gap veer scheme blocking. So it's not traditional veer because the path of the back is not outside leg of the guard. But it's not traditional zone either because the steps of the lineman and the approach to how you're blocking it is not zone. The back is more of a, it's funny, the back is more of a midline track. He's really not a zone track because he doesn't actually cross the center to the front side A-gap, which most inside zone or tight zone plays would probably do. So for us, he is attacking the front side leg of the center. So it's more of a midline track, but I stumbled across some things when I was researching the play, and the hot term at that time was Zeer, combination of zone and veer, so that's what we started calling it. Then I did some research later on the duo play, which the rules of how we block it are very similar to the duo play. We're just doing it a little bit differently because we're so much 10 and 11 or 20 personnel. We're doing it different than the teams, in college and NFL, the teams that are more 12, 21, where they're kind of sealing everything down and based off the read of the tailback on the play side inside linebacker. If the ball bounces to the edge, they are okay with leaving a corner unblocked. And, for us, we don't really do that. We use it in our 10 personnel read game. And I know that a lot of people would say that you probably shouldn't, but I'm going to show you how in our 10 and 11 personnel packages, why we have to use smart splits to understand what we're trying to accomplish. Okay, so the issue with using it in 10 personnel as a true read play is the back enters front side. So we try to keep the back as tight to the front side A-gap as we can. But he's still entering front side, which means he is really close to the unblocked defender. So a lot of people don't like this as a 10 personnel true just straight read play because the 5 technique is close where he can really play both if he's good enough. All right, but what we found out and what I figured out through trial and error is if you can get your offensive lineman to smart split, all right, this Zeer play, you can get the 5 technique where you need him so that you can remove him far enough to where you can A, kick him out, B, read him. If we run it as a kick scheme or a split flow, split zone theory, again, the issue that people have, very similar to a power play when teams are able to spill it, is that 5 technique on the front side becomes harder and harder to dig out if the play is hitting on the front side A-gap. And then if you can't truly dig him out, if the inside linebacker fits in the front side A-gap and your back has to kind of go behind that or bounce, the 5 technique being right there in open-ended sets is what kind of shies people away from running it as a kick scheme or as a 10 personnel read scheme. So what we have to do is we have to be able to teach our front side linemen on the play what techniques are we seeing, what is going to make that 5 technique widen, and what is your assignment, how do you stay true to your assignment. Okay, so for right now we'll just talk about it in terms of an even front. All right, odd fronts become a little bit different, that's why odd fronts are so good. We'll talk about it in terms of an even front right now. The first thing you got to understand is defensive linemen usually play techniques, which means they usually line up shaded head up on an offensive player. So in most case scenarios, the offensive player can dictate where the defensive player lines up just by changing his split. So most of the time defenses, if an end is a 5 technique on a tackle, most of the time the tackle dictates where he lines up, which in essence dictates where the 5 technique lines up, because the 5 technique is told he's got to be eye to eye, shoe to shoe, his inside foot to his outside foot, his inside eye to the tackle's outside eye. So the 5 technique end or the 3 technique, they usually have a rule of where they need to line up. So the offense, in essence, can dictate where that guy lines up because most defensive players don't line up in areas. Now, you will have some defenses when they play against bigger splits, or maybe they line up in gaps and try to penetrate or try to instead of reading, they try to attack a gap. All right, but more often than not in defense, the defenses are taught to play techniques off offensive linemen. So when we know that we can dictate where the 5 technique is based on the split of the tackle. Okay, so what we do, all right, if you have the 3 technique, if the guard is covered with a 3 technique, the guard is the person who will dictate the smart split. Okay, because when we run, all right, very simply, when we run the Zeer play, all right, it is power without a puller. So on the front side, we are going to have a double team here, and it's going to be a vertical double team to the front side backer. We're going to have a double team here to the backside will, and we're going to have a base block out on the backside 5 technique. All right, so really in essence, the term duo means double teams, more double teams, 2 double teams. So if we run the duo play at the 3 technique, we can guarantee we're going to get 2 double teams. We're going to get a double team on the 3 and a double team on the 1. If we run the Zeer play, or the Zeer play, or the duo scheme, however you want to look at it, to me it's all semantics. So if I run the play at the 1 technique or the A shape, I'm only going to get 1 double team. So for us, theoretically, in order to get 2 double teams, sometimes it's better for us to run the ball to the 3 technique as opposed to running it to the open bubble side, which can be contrarian to a lot of offensive philosophy. But if I want to get 2 doubles at the point of attack and in a gap scheme theory, get off the ball, get some vertical movement, I have to run it at the 3 technique. So what happens is, because the 3 technique is going to be doubled with the guard and the tackle has to have a good enough split to the guard so that they can work an effective double team so there is no air between their hips that the 3 technique can split. So if the guard takes a traditional split, okay, so let's say, for instance, the guard takes a 2-foot split here, all right? And then the tackle has to cut his split down to a 1.5 feet or a foot or whatever he needs to do to get a good double team on the 3 with no penetration. What that's going to do is that's going to allow the 5 technique to get a little bit closer to the play and tighter to either the kick out or the read. All right? So when we're facing a 3 technique side and the guard is covered, what we do is we tell the guard to smart split. So now what we do is we tell the guard to take a 2.5 to 3 foot split. What that's going to do is that's going to widen the 3 technique. All right? So now that when the tackle takes a tighter split, foot, 1.5 foot, depending on the ability of the tackle, we still have the end where we want him on the replay. So when we are running the Zeer play in the front side A-gap right here, we want to get that end as wide as we can possibly get him to make it tougher for him to be a factor in the front side A-gap. But based on the front, it's going to dictate to our kids who's going to be moving the split the most to dictate where the 5 technique goes. Okay, so again, if we take normal splits here, so if we take a normal 2 foot split and then a normal foot or a 1.5 foot split, the 3 technique lines up outside shade of the guard. The tackle now has to get himself in position based on his ability and the ability of the 3 technique to be able to effectively double without the 3 technique splitting or penetrating or blowing up the double team. So now if the guard takes a normal split and my tackle has to tighten his split, I'm bringing the 5 technique closer to the A-gap and closer to the play, which now kind of blows that play up because now he's tougher to root out, tougher to dig out. If I wanted to try and read him, he's tougher to read because he can almost play both. Okay, so when I have a 3 technique, I need the split to be adjusted by the guard. So now when the guard takes the adjusted split, okay, widens the 3 technique a little bit, so that now when the tackle tightens his split down a little bit, the end is still wide enough for us to feel like he's not a factor in the A-gap. Okay? So when the guard is covered, we want the split to be adjusted by the guard first. So we want the guard to get the extra split, which will then effectively move the 5 technique where we want him, even though the tackle may be tightening his split. Okay? So even though the tackle may be tightening his split a little bit to double the 3 technique, the 5 technique is still far enough removed because of the split of the guard. Alright, so that's what a smart split is. A smart split is taking a split that is ability, assignment, alignment orientated to get a job done. So a smart split means using a split that in your mind is smart to accomplish what the offensive line needs to accomplish. So a lot of times if it's goal line or you're running some type of wedge inside play, you get foot-to-foot splits, or certain offenses play with foot-to-foot splits all the time. All right, that's because they don't want penetration, they don't want gaps, they don't want anything in there, so they play with those foot-to-foot splits. Well, for us, when we're trying to read an end or keep an end out of the A-gap, if we're foot-to-foot, that brings the 5 technique that much closer. All right, the only other time I would ever think about getting our splits that tight is if I want the ball to go outside. So if I wanted to read the 5 technique or to reach the 5 technique to get the ball outside, then by split, I'll actually tighten down to get the 5 technique further inside so that the ball can be outside. Well, when I want to run a front side A-gap play, I want to get the 5 technique who I'm either kicking or reading. All right, because, for us in this play, we've got some different versions to it, all right, to where we can kick it, right? So we can split, almost like a split zone theory, where it is a double here to backer, kick and dig out the 5 technique. It's power with no pull. So we can do that. If we put the fullback on this side, we can split flow it, not exactly. Split zone is a term everybody would use, but we're not zone blocking it, so split zone isn't as good of a theory. It's more split flow, and now we're kicking the backside. Okay? We can read it. So now what we can do is we can take this guy, and we can bluff the end and arc it to get another blocker on the perimeter, and we can read it. Well, if we're reading it, we want that 5 technique removed. We don't want him tighter. All right, so standard to tighter splits are going to bring the 5 technique closer. He can now kind of play the A-gap because we're not, if we were zoned, the track would look more like that with the back. So now that 5 technique can't usually play both. Well, when the track is front side A-gap there, we have got to do some things with our splits to make this play semi-effective, even realistic, all right, to run. So we know that. We know that it's a tougher scheme to run, but it's, as a gap scheme, for us, as a gap scheme team, we're not going to run inside zone with our gap schemes because we've had, you know, in my 22 years of coaching, we've had limited success with inside zone, even though it's a great football play, even though you're going to see it in college and the NFL as one of the standard run plays. I have a hard time teaching it. We have a better time teaching and have more success with gap schemes. So I'm going to carry this gap scheme so that I can get to my read plays, my split flow plays, and then a lot of my RPOs. So we are going to kick it, we are going to read it, and then we are going to insert it. Okay? Then we are going to insert it, which means we are going to lock it, and base block, and ISO an inside backer. All right, so we are going to kick it, we are going to insert it, and then we are also going to wham it, which means we'll trap it. All right, so if we were going to run the wham theory here, I'd put the fullback on, or the sniffer on this side. All right, and then what we would do is we would block, the backside would block their Zeer or Veer rules or duo rules. All right, I would trade assignments with the guard and the fullback, so I would take the guard up to the mic, base block that, all right, and go ahead and wham the 3 technique. So we carry these 4 versions within our Zeer scheme. Okay, so we carry those 4 versions within our Zeer scheme. So we have got to know how to smart split. When we want to wham the 3 technique, I definitely tell the guard to take an extended split. Get that 3 technique far enough away, get the fullback to where you can get a bigger head of steam, make it harder for that guy to be a factor, closing down and spilling. So bring him a little bit wide. All right? So the smart splits are dependent upon what the front is and who we are trying to move. So again, with the base kick play, I need to move the 5 technique. I need the 5 technique to be a little bit wider, remove him from the front side A gap. In order for me to do that, if I just widen the tackle split, again, if I widen the tackle split, I move the 5 technique, but now we don't get the double as effectively on the 3 technique. So what I need to do is I need to move the guard split, which will widen the 3 technique so that when I tighten the tackle, the end is still wide enough where we want him. Okay? Now, on the other side, though, with an open B gap, the smart split would end up being the tackle, not the guard. Okay? So if we were running this play here, and I'll draw it up as a split flow theory. So if we were running the play this way, to the open B gap, now with the guard uncovered and an A gap player inside of him, the smart split is on the tackle. The tackle is now the guy that has to move the 5 technique. So now the guard is probably going to take a little bit tighter split, all right, to the center because he's now got to work on this play. We would be working that double team there. So now I need the tackle to smart or extend or oversplit this side because the tackle is going to be the guy that moves the 5 technique and gets the 5 technique further away from the play. The B gap is open. The tackle's job is now to extend the split and extend the 5 technique. So when you run it to a covered guard and a 3 technique, it's the guard's job to smart split and extend the split. When you run it to an open B gap, it's the tackle's job to extend the split and open the split to get the 5 technique where we want him so that if we are running, all right, A gap track here with a kick here, it's the tackle's job. The tackle is still a down B gap now straight to backer play. Okay? It's the tackle's job to now understand how to move the 5 technique with your split because you have an open B gap. Okay? So because you have the open B gap, all right, the tackle is the one that has to understand you have to move your split because you are the guy that will affect the 5 technique. You're not doubling with the guard, so I don't need to worry about the split between you and the guard because you're not doubling with him. The guard probably tightens down a little bit to the center because his smart split tells him that if I'm going to double with the center, I'll take some air out of that window so that when we step to the double, we can get hip to hip so that hopefully A-shade one technique, whoever he is, okay, hopefully he doesn't, all right, disrupt the double team by splitting the two of us. So the guard's probably going to tighten his split. So if the guard tightens his split, and my tackle takes a normal split from the guard, the 5 technique is closer to the play. So with the A-shade and the open B gap, the guard can tighten as long as the tackle widens and gets that 5 technique to move a little bit. Okay, so that is how we would essentially use smart splits with our Zeer or our zone veer or our version, quote unquote, of the duo play. Every time I say that, I know there's going to be backlash, but at the end of the day, on paper, it's power without a puller. We're trying to get double teams up front. It's a gap scheme. All right, technically it's a veer scheme, but the path of the back is not veer. The back is not on the outside leg of the guard. We're not running it like split back under center veer or pistol quarterback 3 yards from the center veer on the outside leg of the center. We're running it as a front side A-gap, play side leg of the center play. All right? Because it's a front side A-gap play, kicking or leaving a 5 technique unblocked, all right, gives people a little bit of a reason to kind of flinch from the play. And again, when we're not as physical or we don't use our splits very well, yeah, we sometimes have some trouble running the play also. Okay? But it's our version of the play. We have to make the play fit the way we want to make it fit. Okay? And for us, gap schemes, for whatever reason it may be, maybe it's the teaching, maybe I don't do a good enough job, but when we go gap schemes, our kids get off the ball and play more aggressively. When we go zone schemes, our kids have a tendency to play passive. Does that mean the inside zone play is a passive football play? Hell no. Watch the NFL, and when they run inside zone, they are getting after it, and they're getting after people. I don't know whether it's the athletic ability of our linemen that I've had in 20 years, the athletic ability of high school linemen, the size of high school linemen, the feet of high school linemen. Inside zone for us ends up becoming a passive play, which is probably more my fault than anything else. When we run gap schemes, our kids get off the ball better. Our kids, they kind of understand it better. So it allows us to play faster and be a little bit more physical with our linemen because it's safer for them. All right, but with that being said, I know that when I carry this play, especially 10 personnel, like people get totally freaked out when you run it as a 10 personnel scheme. So, when you're running it as a 10 personnel scheme, people hate it as a true read theory. All right, they hate the play. It shouldn't be run that way. It's not supposed to be run that way. And I understand that. I don't really argue that. Okay? So what I always try to tell people is this is my version of a play. But at the same time, the play really follows, quote unquote, those rules. So it's my version of the duo play. And if I run it out of 10 personnel, I realize that theoretically, on paper and the way everybody processes ball when you're talking to, higher level college coaches, NFL coaches, theoretically, the zone play out of 10 personnel is better because I want that back to get to that other A-gap because if I'm reading this 5 technique, I don't want the back entering front side when I'm reading that 5 technique. It's too easy for them to play both. It's not an efficient play, which I don't argue with. I don't disagree with at all. So what I do, because my linemen are better in this scheme, I'm going to run this scheme and I'm going to teach my linemen how to help themselves, the quarterback, the running back, and me make it a better play. So when we run it out of 10 personnel with a read scheme, we'll teach the smart split, so we'll get the guard to widen. So now we can get that 5 technique where I want him. So when I go front side, he has to bend or do one or the other because he can't play both. Okay, so that is why we use smart splits with our Zeer play, zone veer play, quote-unquote duo play. That's why we have to teach smart splits. That's why we use or have to use smart splits. Okay, smart splits are basically assignment alignment. Offensive line, be smart to understand the job, the play, and what split can you use to help us effectively or more effectively run that play. Hopefully this video helps, all right? Remember to click that subscribe button, turn your notifications on. Thumbs up, thumbs down if you like the video or don't like the video, or if I don't describe it how you want, or if I could describe it differently. All right, if you like it, thumbs up. You don't like it, thumbs down. It helps us with content. Always leave a comment. Every comment that I see, I will respond to. All right, if you leave a comment about a future video, if I can do the video and it makes sense, I will try and do the video. All right, and then, again, as always with all those comments, all right, it doesn't matter whether you like it, don't like it. If you comment, I'm going to respond. When you do this type of thing, if there's negative comments, I just respond with, hey, thanks for watching. So don't be afraid to leave a comment. A negative comment is not going to hurt my feelings. 48 years old, been doing this for a long time. Certainly won't hurt my feelings. So make sure you leave comments, thumbs up, thumbs down if you like or don't like the videos. All right, subscribe, turn your notifications on so you know when I do these videos and I go on YouTube Live. As always, I appreciate everything you guys do for Play Fast Football. Make sure you check out our partners. And remember, you don't play well, or excuse me, you won't play well until you play fast. This is a live video. I won't edit it, and I just made a mistake. But you won't play well until you play fast, and I'll see you guys next time.